Welcome to the Dance to Heal podcast. I'm your host, Jenny C. Cohen. Join me as I share stories of how life is a dance. I'm a cancer survivor, mother of two, and an award-winning performer who found that mind and body connected movement is vital to healing in a way that is safe and tailored to your life. I created Dance to Heal Wellness featuring the Spotlight Confidence Formula and also authored the best-selling award-winning book, Outside In Recovery, Dancing My Way Back to Myself After Breast Cancer. I will bring new ways to help you on your dance journey and healing path. Are you ready to move? Dance to Heal starts now. My friends, I am so excited that I have a very, very special guest today. Her name is Danette. However, before I allow her to take the mic, I want to give you a little peek at the experience that Danette has. Not only is she an Emmy award-winning television producer, she is also a media and publicity coach, and she helps those of us who are asking to be seen in the areas we need help with most. Now, her 20-year experience includes working for CNN, the Oprah Winfrey Show, HGTV, Fine Living Network, CBS, and Fox 20th Television. What does that mean? That means she's got so much experience. So when I ask her questions and she answers, will you please pay attention to the parts that resonate you? Because this is gold that you're getting for literally the price of nothing for admission. Danette, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Jenny. It is always so good to be with you.
All right, so my audio audience, YouTube could see me jumping up and down in silence, trying not to make noise, but like audio people, you'd be like, I was just flapping my hands and like just seriously so excited. I know you from a membership, and now that you are starting to expand more in your experience, will you explain what those beautiful statues were for, y'all? She's got some really interesting awards. If you're not watching the YouTube video, tell us about those, please.
Yeah, so my whole life I always wanted to work in TV, and I always wanted to win an Emmy. So they were kind of the goals I set out for myself. Even when I was like choosing what I wanted to do for college and that sort of thing. So I was able to go after my dream. I wanted to work for Oprah. I did. I wanted to win an Emmy. I got two. So I like really, really believe in chasing your dreams and going after your goals. So I call my Emmys my first set of twins. I actually received them for a court show that I was working on at the time. By the time I started at Oprah, she had already taken herself and the show out of the running. She had already won so many Emmys. She wanted to leave that space in the field for someone else to step in. So I knew that if I wanted to go ahead and get those awards, I would have to branch out a little bit and try some other avenues. And I'm just really thankful, really grateful, and really proud of myself for being able to achieve that.
That's phenomenal. I'm really glad that you said that because we're taught usually in our current society that we're not allowed to be proud of ourselves. And I think that's really important, right? Because you worked hard for those. It's not like they were gifted at all.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I agree. And that's actually something that comes up in my coaching quite often is how people don't want to talk about their achievements. They shy away from it. That sounds like bragging. That sounds like I'm showing off. And you're right. We're told that our whole lives, as young as first grade on the playground, don't show off. But truthfully, if you don't tell people what you've done and what you've achieved, how do they know that you're the person who can help them? And especially as entrepreneurs and authors and experts who really get into the fields they get into because they want to help other people. They know they have something that can make someone else live a better life. If you don't tell us what you've done to accomplish that, you're missing that trust factor. People need that know, like, and trust factor to learn from you. So it really is up to us to own our accomplishments and own the things we've done so that we can help the people who need us most.
I love that. There is, though, a way to do it that really benefits us versus
Mhm.
other ways that doesn't always put us in that better light. Do you have some suggestions for those of us who have accomplishments, not yet double Emmys or working with Oprah Winfrey herself, yet there's still accomplishments. How do we better navigate that idea of publicity?
I think a lot of it comes down to the lessons you learned along the way. Being relatable, being able to share the story of your journey and the struggles that you've gone through to get where you are. Because a lot of people who might be watching you on that television interview or listening to you on that podcast or reading an article about you, they're in that journey right now. They're facing those same struggles that maybe you faced 10 years ago, maybe you faced them 2 weeks ago, however your journey plays out. It's that relatability that you've been where they are and you figured out a way to come out on the other side. So being able to share that journey along the way, those hardships, those doubts, everybody faces those doubts. What did you do to pull you out of those doubts so that you could continue on and find a solution to whatever problem it is you solve? And everybody has something. Everybody has a journey story. There's some origin story there of why you do what you do. Whether that was something that you went through yourself, maybe it was watching a loved one go through that journey. Maybe it was just something that you felt drawn to because you knew you could help people. Whatever that story is, that's what people want to hear. So it's not bragging, look how great I am, I did this. It's more, I worked hard to get to where I am, and I went through the struggles you went through, and I'm sharing my journey so you don't have to suffer the way I did.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so here's a question on regarding that. It wasn't that. Ooh, this is a good question because my voice is. Ooh, I like this. Okay, so the journey between when you were a little girl wanting to work on television and wanting to win an Emmy to when you were officially hired to work on Oprah Winfrey Show.
Mhm.
Tell us an abbreviated, how did that happen?
I was very focused. I was one of those annoying kids who knew what I wanted to do and found ways around it. So I grew up in a small steel town. It wasn't like we had a lot of famous people. We didn't have, a stepping stone to follow to do what I wanted to do. I didn't know anybody who did what I wanted to do. But I found ways to go about it. So when I was 16 in high school, the Boy Scouts had a program called Boy Scout Explorers where our local cable access television station had them come in and do things like we covered things like city council meetings and local football games, and local bands would come on and perform, and it was a bunch of teenagers running the whole thing, like we from running camera to directing to using the switchboard and everything. So I had to become a Boy Scout to do it. So I did it. I was a brownie. I was never a Girl Scout. I was a brownie, and I was a Boy Scout. And I just think that's, again, it's just find the workarounds so that you can get where you want to be. And then I chose my college based on a top 10 journalism school. They had a student run television station where I got involved immediately. I was news director my senior year. We had really great opportunities for internships while I was in school, so that I had a great resume by the time I graduated and was able to get right into CNN 3 months after graduation. So it was looking for the opportunities and not just, well, I don't know anybody who's done this, so it must not be a possibility for me. I always saw that possibility and I chased it down. And I really want other people to do that. And I want people to look at my story as you can do this too. I feel like when you have like a calling, when you believe something, we've heard from experts who talk about that deep knowing inside you, and you just kind of, like you said, owe it to yourself to go after it. Because I think I want to regret the things I did rather than the things I didn't do. And I really went after the things I wanted.
I love that. I love that. Your story reminds me of when I was in high school and I had been volunteering at this camp on Martha's Vineyard called Camp Jabberwocky, and it was mostly for children with disabilities. Most of them had spina bifida. We had a couple of children with other challenges. And our job as counselors was just to give them 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks away from home where they could have camp experience and their families could have a break of for children who were 24-hour care, right? 7 days a week.
Love that.
And we had this giant red bus painted in Alice in Wonderland themes and a blue van. And every day you would see us blasting music, the Yellow Submarine song with all this banging on the walls because I was the counselors, keeping the kids happy. And we would take them to the beach and through various means, dragging wheelchairs, having kids on our backs, take them to the edge of the water and then put them in the water every day for them to have that freedom. And I remember thinking to myself, I want to do this all my life. And then there was an occupational therapist that came one year and she said, this is what we do. And not necessarily in the beaches, but
Mhm.
give people who, back then, so we're talking 35, 45 years ago, maybe, right? And I'm 56. So yeah, 16 years, 40 something years ago, children who had spina bifida did not have as much access to
Right.
things like camp or even the feeling that they had the right to a full life. So at that time, when the OT said, that's our jobs as occupational therapists, we help people get to where they want to go, not what society wants them to go. So they
Yeah.
can do the things they want to do. I was like, well, I want to do that. And I was like, but how? I don't know. I mean, blah, blah. And I remember very much like you underground going, well, how do I? Oh, only degrees for occupational therapists back then were master's degrees.
Mm.
I went into college and decided first year I'll be a psych major because that fulfills a lot of the pre the pre-graduate
Requisite.
school, yeah, the prerequisites. And then the couple that I was missing, I went to Boston University and took them because I was like, well, I think I want to apply to Sargent College at Boston U for their master's degree in occupational therapy. And that's how I kind of worked around it because then when my application went through, it was like, oh, I already took biology, the physiology, all of the ology classes at BU. And they're like, well, then that's up to par with what we need you to have to even consider you for this graduate program. Right. And I remember all of that. And I remember not even thinking it was determined. It was more like a dream. I just wanted a dream to work as an OT. Then I realized afterward, y'all, it's a really hard job. It's like, it's one thing to do camp at beach, and it's another thing to work in that field. And so along those lines for you, when you were finally behind the scenes of like CNN, right?
Mhm.
Those of us on the outside, we see it has this very high-end media company, that's like a giant, for me, my perspective and other people I've spoken to, it's like this giant battleship. 'Cause it's so big and powerful
Mhm.
with a lot of influence and a lot of behind the things happening. What was the experience for you from the very first year you worked and then the last year you worked? What were the differences for you in that type of company?
I think I'm so glad you shared your story because it plays right into mine, truthfully. Working at CNN was also a dream because it was the world's news leader. Like that was your go-to at the time, and I'm very proud of my time there. But it was mostly talking about all the bad stuff that was happening. It was kind of just reporting on what was going wrong. And I have too sensitive of a heart for that. There are still stories we covered at CNN during my time there, and I still have nightmares about them. And I realized that it's important to tell those stories and let people know, inform people of what's happening, but I didn't see the solutions. So I think that's what led me into, applying for Oprah, because there we're still telling those stories, but we're looking for solutions. And I worked on a lot of her Angel Network stories where we honored people who did the work you did at that camp. And that was my favorite part because we were highlighting the good things that were happening. Yes, bad things led to creating these amazing things, but I felt like that had more impact than just informing people, here's what's happened, here's what's happened, here's what's happened, as opposed to here's what's happening. This is what this amazing organization is doing to solve whatever that problem is. And then with the Angel Network on top of that, they would get donations and all these amazing things would come from it. And I think that's that was kind of like the happy place where I felt like we really were making a difference. She called it Change Your Life TV. And like I said, I worked on a lot of the Angel Network shows, but all the other shows too, where she was teaching people how to journal. Like that seems like so basic. But back then, that was a big deal to do a television show about journaling and how that can help your emotional well-being and all of that sort of thing. So I think, it was kind of a combination. It was a natural progression for me from, people have a right to know what's happening to people have a right to know what's happening and be a part of whatever solution there might be. So yeah, I think I'm so thankful that you did what you did at that camp and that so many other people have amazing organizations where they're making a difference. And I love being a part of the media where we could highlight those missions and all the good that was being done and still is being done.
Yes. Yes, I loved your transparency regarding the dream you had versus the reality once you were there, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I was trying to go back to work as an occupational therapist before I call it the panini COVID lockdown, the panini. 'Cause people have different definitions about whether or not it's really over. So I just call it the panini and then everyone knows what I'm talking about. Um, Before I was trying to recertify and relicense an OT. And then once the panini hit, I was like, I don't want to be in a hospital anymore. So that's why I pivoted more into coaching. And it's just like the reality. I remember being so worn down by the children because I did rotations in pediatrics,
Hmm.
and they're really sick kids in hospitals. And so I was like, oh, my heart can't take this. And then I realized as I was doing the coaching and I was more in full recovery from my breast cancer, that there were certain things that, like certainly what Oprah is doing, which is shining the light on things we can do on our own end individually.
Hmm.
I love the fact that you reminded people because I don't know, like journaling is again being seen as this new thing. I'm like, no, Oprah talked about it first. I'm glad you said that because oftentimes, right, the people who started this movement aren't, no one knows who they were. It's more the loudest people, which gets back to the whole topic we were talking about when you first started this episode with me, right, Danette, is that it's how do we become more visible at what we love to do in ways that bring people in and draw us out and draw people in. Does that make sense? Because like for me, I have a question and we it's audience members. I ask a question of all of my guests. Are there any no-go areas that I'm not allowed to ask? Because I've had guests who were like, I know I talk about this. I really don't want you to ask me any questions about my kids. And I'm like, great, thank you. I really need to know that because I don't want the person who's the guest on the show ever feeling uncomfortable. That's the point, right? Is to have you at ease so you can share things that are meant to be shared with this particular audience. So I have a question for you because it is very pertinent to this topic of navigating publicity, right?
Hmm.
How much of the real us do we actually need to hold on to? Meaning, like Oprah to me has always seemed to be this very approachable, warm person.
Hmm.
Understand, I'm not saying she's got to be perfect because she's human. She's allowed to have her bad days. I'm not saying that. How much from you now having worked the show in your experience, right? Does she
Hmm.
have to distance herself a little bit from her real herself versus the persona of Oprah, like the rest of us are trying to navigate when we're out there?
Right, right. I think it's very personal for each person how they put themselves out there. And throughout this journey of the show and even past the show with the magazine and everything she's done since then, she has been very open, which is something I admire because I think a lot of times people have a certain shield up. Um, and I guess, she's obviously comfortable with what she has shared with the world. And I know she's shared more than most people do. And I think, going back to us and, those authors, experts, entrepreneurs who are trying to navigate the world of visibility, it's a very different world now than it was, 30 years ago when Oprah went on air. There wasn't social media at that time. And truthfully, now social media and YouTube and that sort of thing, that influence is outshining traditional television now. That YouTube and streaming services are way ahead of traditional media. So it's a different beast. And I do think that people have to have their own comfort level and be careful too, because you mentioned people wanting to protect their kids and what they share about their kids, because once it's out there forever. So you do want to have a certain level of curating for safety reasons. But I think as far as putting your personal story out there when it comes to your area of expertise, the more you can share, the more people will relate to you and the more people will want to know more. If you share a little bit that helped them in this area of their life, they're going to come back and want to know, well, what do you think about this part of this story? Or what do you think about this part of my struggles? And that's what you want them to do. You want them to come back for more because that's when they buy your book or come here to speak or sign up for your online programs or subscribe to your podcast or whatever it is you want them to do. So I think, it's a very personal decision, but it's also, and too, even if you share something that you're thinking, oh gosh, I can't believe I put that out there, they may be interested in it for a day or two, and then they're going to be on to whatever other viral thing is happening tomorrow. And there might be some lesson to be learned in that situation. So I think it's okay to share your struggles. It's okay to let people know that you're not perfect because that's when they can really relate to your story and what you're going through. And that makes them feel seen because they likely made those same mistakes too. And if you understand, again, if you understand their struggles, they're going to feel more confident in listening to your advice.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so Danette, we're going to clarify for the audience. So we're going to there's been a trend in social media for people where they are sometimes oversharing or
Mhm.
my favorite trauma dumping, right? Because like as a performer, I my very very first solo at a big event was about my son being diagnosed with type 1. And I remember the energy level I had to work up to the point of the memory of his going to the hospital and then the diagnosis of the ER and then the ride in the ambulance to the pediatric ICU and then his just being almost going into a coma. It was terrible. And my point is, I would work myself up to a certain level to perform this one piece. It was only 2 minutes and then I would be like knocked out for a week after. And I only performed it live once, and I brought the house down, and everybody just bawled. Even the person who did the event came. It was my very first solo because I was it was so important for me to show something that was really truly me, and I stopped doing that since because I realized I was dancing from a raw wound.
Mhm.
It was something that I wasn't healed from. And so I was dragging the audience through the journey with me as I relived it on stage, even though it was a very, surreal thing. It wasn't exactly what was happening. I wasn't playing out going to the ER. It was just a certain
Yeah.
piece, right?
Mhm.
And in performances, are performers that will just suck all the energy out of you. And so you are enthralled with their performance and you're feeling, oh my God, why am I so drained? Because they took all the energy. They're like little energy vampires, right? And
Yes.
there's people who only give, they bombard you with their energy. And you're like, ah, I got enough. And then there are artists that will exchange energy. They take the energy
Mhm.
you give them and they give it back to you, alchemized in some way.
Yep.
So my question to you is, for those of us who are just starting to come out, right?
Mhm.
And when people coach with me as performers, I tell them the day of performance, you're already on once you have your makeup and you walk out the door. Because you don't know who you're going to meet in the parking lot. You don't know who
That's
you're going
true.
to, make eye contact with in the waiting room or another performer in the dressing room. So you're already in your persona of that performer. Be aware of that because it will influence how you perform.
Yes.
For the rest of us who are, we're not performers or singers and we're about ready to be seen for what we do.
Mhm.
How do we make that preparation, Danette? Because for
Yeah.
me, like I've seen you in very low key, like so this membership that we used to be part of, Danette was a coach, a part of this program, and your energy never shifted no matter what. I was like, so when I say shift energy, let me clarify. When we as members were coming to these live events, it was a mixture of excitement and like fear because we'd have to take the stage for 30 seconds to do introductions and get a headshot. And there were other entrepreneurs, and there's always insecurity going on and imposter syndrome. And Danette, you were one of the few people that was always centered.
I appreciate that.
right?
Thank you.
I didn't know any of your introduction, folks. Like the intro that I told you earlier today, I did not know she worked with Oprah. Now that, yet Danette was super, like, just really solid. How do we do that for ourselves?
I think a lot of it plays into your mindset and feeling comfortable and confident in your expertise and knowing that what you're there to do is going to help somebody else. I think sometimes just taking the focus off of yourself and putting the focus on the people you're helping can really shift a lot of those doubts and that the nervousness and all of those feelings that we tend to feel when we're putting ourselves out there. A lot because you're right in feeling like, oh my gosh, what are people going to think of me? And that's a totally normal human emotion. But again, focus on why you're doing what you do. What's your why? Your why is to help somebody else. And if you can focus on that one person that you're going to be helping, and even if it is just one person that you're helping, it's worth it. But chances are, by putting yourself out there and you're putting your expertise out there, you're going to be helping so many people. But sometimes if you focus just on one, create that one person in your mind that you want to help and just speak to them, that advice you have for that one person is going to trickle out into all the other people that need your help as well. So it's I think just kind of a simple mindset shift away from me to all of you that I can help. Does that help?
I do, I do, I do. I love that. And so we're going to add to that shift that Danette just suggested. Remember, if you're present, you will have the answer of how much you need to share. If that
Hmm.
makes sense, during whatever that situation, whether you're on stage and
Hmm.
you're getting a download, I need to share the story, or you're
Yes.
in a conversation with someone at an event, right? And you're like, oh, am I listening enough? Like if you're present in your body, you'll know. And I guess that for me, you're always present to me, Danette. And I think it's because of the experiences you've had, all of it.
Yeah, and I think too, as a TV producer, I'm used to walking those guests in and hearing all of their doubts as they're going out out on set, and then hear, when they're walking off stage and hearing, oh, I forgot to mention this, or I wish I had done that, and that I think has really helped me as a coach because I help my clients figure all of that stuff out ahead of time so that and just look over these notes that you made so that when you go out there you hit this point and you hit that point so that you're not walking away beating yourself up. And I think even just having maybe just a list to remind yourself of three things: I'm doing it because of this, I love what I do because I help this person. Just have that confidence booster right before you go out for that interview. Make the points you want to make. It doesn't matter what questions that interviewer asks you. You can still be gracious and answer whatever question they ask, and still work in your talking point. You can still do that, just so that you're walking away from that interview feeling like you got out of it what you needed, and your audience got from you what they needed. And I think that's just that will again help boost your confidence so that you can give the best performance you can.
Oh, that's gold. I love that, Danette. So my wonderful audience, I've already gone over time, and I told my editor that we wanted to keep it to one episode. Sometimes we'll split it into two if it goes longer. We're just gonna have to have you come back, Danette. Promise, okay? And we'll have to do a part two because I had three more questions, but we need to end the interview here now. And here's the thing, though, audience member, you're the very first to be directed to Danette's website. So it's Danette, Danett, two T's, E, and then her last name is Kubanda, Kubanda, Kubanda. She owns that domain. So DanetteKubanda.com. When you go there, she'll have a gift for you. I have a question for you. Would you be open to doing like a little gift for our guests if they, once they hear this? So you're really lucky. I'm actually going to be, I had warned her I might do this, so it's not a surprise. When you're listening to this episode, whether you're on YouTube, so you get to see her pretty face, or you're listening to her voice on just the podcast audio, then that's going to put together a little gift for us, right? So, and they have to get it from DanetteKubanda.com. Here's the thing, though. What do you think you might want to gift them? I was thinking like maybe like if they've always wanted to do an interview,
Mhm.
what are some things they could start to do to make that
Oh,
happen?
absolutely. Just like some steps to be successful in booking an interview.
Yes.
Absolutely. I love that. Because again, I think a lot of times people want to get publicity, but they don't know where to start. So I would be more than happy to help people get that start so that they can start being more visible.
That's great, great. So, when this episode comes out, because obviously we're recording it before it launches, by then, Danette will have a gift on that website for you, and you want to go there and take advantage of it. And of course, when you're, and you can go to the YouTube channel and go to this episode with Danette, all right? You can ask questions in the comments section and we'll come back and answer them regarding anything of what we said. Okay, anything personal like, does Oprah smell nice? You can't ask those, she can't answer them. Sorry. Like those are not the questions to ask. I tried. I did, folks. She said she can't answer them. So my thing is, you can ask questions pertaining to yourself regarding her expertise of being able to avail yourself to publicity and how to navigate that pathway. Is there any other, like one more thing you want us to be aware of before we let you go?
I just want people to be aware that they have an important story to share. Whatever it is that you're out there doing, it deserves to be told. It deserves to be heard. And it's your responsibility to get in front of the people who need you. You can't help people if they don't know you exist. So letting people know you're out there and how you can help them is really, really important. And I'm happy to help you along that journey.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And here's the thing, audience. I'm gonna tell you a secret. You ready? When that opportunity happens, you want to be ready for it. So that means now we both know a person who said this where she set up a therapist when she didn't technically need one because then the shit hit the fan the year after and she was so glad she already had the therapist set up because there was no need to catch the therapist up with her whole life when this emergency happened. In this world of cameras everywhere,
Hmm.
everywhere, folks, everywhere. Like you could just be sitting there just sipping your mocha at a cafe, and there's someone else with you in the background doing a selfie or doing some video for their social media. All right. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. So I'm asking you, go to Danette's website, get your gift, and then, if she has an option on there, she will. Sorry, Danette.
Hmm.
I'm just
No,
volunteering.
I will. I will.
She's gonna have a booking thing to book some time with her. Some of us don't like to talk with someone immediately. You just want to get the gift, right? And if it really resonates with you, book the call with her to just start the process because speaking in front of a camera that's being recording is an actual muscle you want to start waking up and strengthening before that gift of being in front of an interviewer happens. Really, truly.
Yes. So true.
It's like it's a person who wants to dance, does no dancing, and all of a sudden the camera's on them, and they're like, "Wait, what?" And so life is the dance. We're asking you just to get some lessons first before you get on the dance floor. Until next time, bye bye.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Danette. Thanks for listening to the Dance to Heal podcast with Jenny C. Cohen. Come back next time to hear stories of inspiring triumph and learn more ways that you can heal yourself. To work with me and continue your journey, visit danceandheal.com. Are you ready to move?